Thanks for logging on to myfoxhurricane.com, watching Hurricane Ernesto. And as you look at this loop, you're seeing an impressive looking hurricane, but you look at the details of this and you start to see some little issues that we talked about this yesterday, and we continue to see these kinds of issues going on, and that's the dry air. You see this right through here, wrapping all the way towards the center. That's actually where some of this dry air is getting pulled into this system. It gets all the way into the center of the storm. So that really kind of limits its ability to intensify. Several days ago, you may recall, there was a lot of discussion on this could get into some very warm waters that were just basically untapped, plenty of moisture, plenty of heat content, and there was that real possibility that we could see some rapid intensification. That was really the big concern. But now what you're looking at is a lot of this dry air just continues to plague this storm. So from time to time, you see it kind of sucking some of this in, makes its way all the way to the center. And so that's really going to limit this storm's ability to really intensify. Now, it will continue to intensify. It's just going to be slower and not as much as what maybe we thought a couple of days ago. Right now, winds are at 85 miles an hour. It's moving to the north at 14 miles an hour. So as we go through the next couple of days, still watching this very closely in Bermuda. Now, if Bermuda wasn't there, this wouldn't be an issue at all, really. This would basically just be working its way across the Atlantic Ocean, heading towards the north, and we wouldn't be looking at the models nearly as closely as we are. All things considered, they're actually in really good agreement, but we're just kind of pinpointing on exactly how close this is going to come. Will it hit Bermuda? Will it go to the west or to the east of Bermuda? Right now, that official forecast tracks still just to the west of Bermuda. But again, remember, we talk about that cone. So really anywhere within this cone is still fair game for this to be working its way on towards the north. So it can move right over Bermuda, it can move just to the east of Bermuda, or it can move to the west of Bermuda, which is what if you go right down the middle of the line, that is what you're seeing with this. But the other thing that you notice is the wind speeds. Yesterday, this was forecasted to become a major hurricane just into that category 3. Now, because of that dry air, also some of the moderate wind shear that this is experiencing and will continue to experience, official forecast has gone down a little bit, only looking at a category 2. Still a dangerous storm, still a lot of issues with this, but if you're in Bermuda, anything you can get to weaken this storm, to lessen the effects, you'll take it at this point. So if we're talking about some wind shear, we're talking about some dry air, those are all good news items if you're in Bermuda, because you want this to obviously be as weak as it possibly could be. So you look at the computer models and heading up towards Bermuda, you look at this, a little bit of a spread in there, but all things considered, they're really tightly clustered. We're talking really about a 50 to 60 mile difference in many of these computer models at most. So this is really actually very a good agreement. And then even as you head to the north and where we lose some of those steering currents because the trough will be lifting out and you see a little bit more of a spread, you're talking about very good agreement in these computer models in the long term as well. So here is the European, the GFS, and our own Fox model looking at this heading towards Bermuda. There's Bermuda right there, basically the Fox model pushing it right over Bermuda. You've got the GFS in red, which is maybe just a little bit further towards the east. And then you also have the European, which is a little bit further towards the west. But again, all these three models are really all tightly clustered as far as where this storm is going. The only difference here between, say, the Fox model and the European, it's about 45 miles. And we're talking 45 miles out in the middle of the ocean, a couple of days out. That is really, really close. The only thing that makes this a concern is because you've got Bermuda in there, and then it'll work its way on towards the north. So here it is on the Fox model. You can see actually some of that wind shear starting to kind of affect that northern side of the storm. You see every once in a while you get these areas right here kind of wrapping in some of that dry air. Another way to look at this is actually we're looking at that mid-level moisture. So where you see these green shades, the darker greens, that's that very moist atmosphere. You look at the legend up here as you started to get into those yellows, the browns, down towards the purple shade. That is that drier air. So watch as we go through time. You see what happens? You get some of this dry air coming in right towards the center. Notice you don't have green, you've got a yellow shade. So it's telling us some of that dry air is actually making its way all the way into the center of the storm. So here we are on Friday morning. And so that tells us we will continue to be dealing with that dry air from time to time working its way in. Here we are on Friday afternoon. And again, you see that little hint of dry air working its way towards the center of this storm. So that will continue to plague this storm and just not to allow it to strengthen as much. So there's still plenty to watch with this storm as we go through the next several days. And we will keep you updated right here on myfoxhurricane.com.